Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Before the Court. Tonight, we're going to be looking at a recent video out of North Nashville, Tennessee, about the extremely tragic shooting between both Officer Josh Baker as well as subject Nika Holbert. Before we get into it, let's go ahead and bring in all of our great friends, Joe, Aric, and Heather. Panelists, come on in here. Where are you guys? Joe Gandersky, retired Deputy Chief of Detective Chicago. Heather Waddell, criminal counsel. Aric Anderson, author of The Blue Book. All right, you guys, we're going to look at this shooting out of North Nashville with Officer Josh Baker, subject Nika Holbert. We will be right back to discuss it. We'll see you after the video.
Just bring your bag out here.
Okay.
Ma'am, stop going through it. You come step right back here. What did you take out of it?
Nothing. I was
Okay. All right, listen. Just come back here. I think we're getting off on the wrong foot, okay?
Because I'm really confused on why I'm getting stopped.
He's got several warrants.
Okay, that has nothing to do with me.
You don't know who's in the car.
Nobody's in my car.
Well, now I know that. However, now I'm going to address the other problems.
Okay, so you want my bag and all my belongings.
So just step right back here.
Can I use the restroom?
And let you know this is being audio and video recorded,
That's
just to let you know.
Okay.
23, if you did have one more, that would be good.
I'm just
Right. 10-4, dispatch any unit near Ewing Drive and for church, Ewing Drive and for church.
Can we step back here?
21 to 23, do you need me code 3?
Negative, just code 2. So it's just in here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, was there...
Well, I'm about 5 minutes from you.
Is this?
Yes. It's probably another bag of weed. Hey, Mom, I need you to come to Alpha Trinity Lane right here where Seco is, the Dollar General.
23 to
I
25.
just got pulled over because the mine name is on the car, and he wanted to know if he was in the car. He's not in the car, but I do got weed.
Hey, are you available?
I'm right here in the Dollar General.
You can be in a couple minutes.
By the, what is this?
Pickle. Brick Church
Brick Church.
and Ewing.
Brick Church.
Can I have you starting around? You're about 4 minutes away. Disregard on that.
Can I get my lighter?
Yeah, I'm not done with that though. Where's your lighter at?
In the car.
13, it
I'll
says you're about 7 minutes away.
I'll get it for you in a second, okay?
To Ewing Drive and Brick
right there
Church
in your
and the Dollar General. Can I have you start around to 23?
You scaring me.
Thank you.
Yeah, come on. Here, do me a favor, turn around.
No, hold
Turn
on.
around.
Don't put me in handcuffs. I haven't done anything wrong.
Ma'am.
No, don't put me
You're about to get tased.
No!
Get down! Get down on the ground! Down on the ground! Step out. Ma'am! Put the gun down! Put the gun down! 23 shots fired! Shots fired!
10-4, 13, keep at that code 3.
.23, I'm hit.
Turn around.
Step out. Ma'am, put the gun down! Put the gun down! 23 shots fired! Shots fired!
10-4, 13, keep at that code 3.
I'm hit.
Joe, coming to you first this time. What did we see happen there? You know, there is some question that I've heard arise about this particular instance, which doesn't really relate to the shooting itself, but apparently there is some question legally as to the officer's probable cause to search in her purse, which we'll get back to that. Give us a rundown. What did you see?
Well, first of all, it's very interesting in that videos don't always clarify something. I mean, this is, if you didn't know anything else about the case, it's very confusing as to what was going on, especially right at the point of him tasing her. I really never was aware that she had pulled a gun. So, I mean, I just couldn't see it. Everything was happening too quickly. And then I couldn't tell how many shots he fired or how many shots she fired. It all went south, as we have seen consistently over and over in a heartbeat. Okay. I mean, they were very cordial, although it was kind of a passive aggressive thing on her part when he first stopped her, I guess. But okay. So here's the stop. He obviously ran the plate and found out who the car belonged to. And there was a whole bunch of serious narcotic warrants against that person. All right. She rightly points out that was him, not me. You know, it's obviously not him. He's not in the car. So, but to me, over and over and over again, and I've become more concerned with this with every incident that I see, this type of stop would never happen before, like when I was working the street, because people would comply. They would listen to the officer's instructions. They wouldn't be moving back and forth, getting on a cell phone, calling somebody, lighting up a cigarette, going back and forth with the back and forth to their bag, et cetera, after he told her to leave it on the trunk. He goes back to the squad car, does something, and leaves the bag there. So what I'm saying is that my impression of what occurred was that he called for an assist. He, not in an emergency manner. He just asked basically if somebody was around that they could roll by. The car said, "Is it an emergency? Is it going to be a code 3 or not?" We use different terminology in Chicago. No, take your time. Well, see, to me, officers are hesitant to request assistance, and I think it's a mistake because what happens is when a subject doesn't listen, now you're faced to confine themselves regarding movement, okay, and to instructions. Then forced to either try to forcibly regain control, or you become kind of worrisome as to what's going on. You know that you're losing control of the situation, which is what happened. I mean, she was walking around. Could I go to the bathroom? You know, she could have just walked away, walked off the scene. And what would he have done? So in my opinion, relative to the aspects leading up to the shooting, I think it's important for police officers to understand that it's not a shame or a crime or not bothersome to ask for some assistance to help control the stop. Regarding the search and all the other stuff, yeah, well, I mean, he's authorized to look for weapons when he's to make sure that there's no weapon. Beyond that, you know, he's inside of her purse going through stuff. Again, it was, but that didn't really affect whether relative to the shooting. So,
Heather, had the shooting not happened, let's say that the shooting hadn't happened and she had been arrested, what would have happened in your opinion with the question over his PC to search her property?
He had none.
Okay.
Full stop. So I would have put in a motion to quash arrest and suppress evidence immediately. I'm not even certain if that in Illinois and Cook County would have passed felony review for looking at that and seeing that he didn't have any probable cause. As soon as he's allowed, obviously he can pull her over if there's, plates or something that they ran and they have reasonable suspicion that there might be somebody in the vehicle that's stolen the car or has drugs or whatever, and they're investigating. They can do an investigative stop. Absolutely 100%. As soon as they pull the car over, she gets out and they realize there are no other occupants in the vehicle and that it's not the person that they're looking for. That's it. So unfortunately, that at that juncture, the right thing for him really to do would have been, I do agree that he could have called for a backup, or that people should almost always just have a partner. Like, I don't think that any of them should ever just be alone. But to call for backup, or ask his partner, what do we do? And sometimes you honestly just have to let the person go, and you can do the right thing when it's the right time, when you do have probable cause to stop the person, when it is the right person, when you have a warrant, just something. Sometimes, according to the law and the facts that you have to wait. So what I then noticed in this particular situation, because he chose to continue to kind of investigate somebody that he didn't have probable cause to believe had done anything, he doesn't have the right to just start searching through her belongings. He doesn't have the right to just start searching through the vehicle. He actually only can even check the vehicle or her person for weapons, for a weapons search, if she does something or he has reason to believe by reasonable suspicion or probable cause that she is armed or presently dangerous. He has to have more than a hunch to say that he's fearful that there is something dangerous, that she's armed or presently dangerous. If he sees a bulge, or if he's certainly allowed to ask, do you have weapons in the car, anything like that. And then absolutely you can do a search. If they say, yes, I have one here, or yes, there's one in the car, then they can. But short of that, if he sees nothing else to indicate that she's armed or dangerous, or he has any fear, if she's not made any furtive movements, as they like to say, or, which she kind of did, like Joe said, she was kind of going back in and out of her purse, and, I would have maybe made her leave the purse in the car and maybe come step away where she can't reach it. At that point, then you're good. You can have a little more security, feeling that she can't actually reach something before you could get to it or before you could arm yourself. Then we get to the next juncture of, again, at least in Illinois, and I haven't looked too far in depth except for into some of the self-defense stuff, which I think we can get into a little bit later, in regards to the tasing and the shooting and the back and forth shooting. Officers are not allowed to just engage in a scenario and then say, oh, but we felt threatened. If you don't have probable cause or reasonable suspicion to believe that a person is imminently about to commit a crime or has just committed a crime, and you go just engage in an encounter, you don't, again, just get to then play victim and say, well, because they reacted, now I have to defend myself, or now I have to use this force. You don't get to do that. So when she started kind of running away, being like, that has nothing to do with me, don't handcuff me, I didn't do anything. Again, I know he realized he was losing control of the situation, but again, she hadn't done anything wrong that he could point to. She hadn't committed a crime that he knew of. She wasn't about to commit any crime that I could see. She was running away from him. She was saying, I haven't done anything. So for him to try to, handcuff her and then to tase her is problematic.
I think that he was trying to cuff her, probably wrongly, but I think he was trying to detain her because of those furtive movements and her kind of general behavior.
Correct. And I do agree. Again, I think that's where Joe is absolutely correct. If he had a partner there or somebody else, any kind of backup, he would have been more in control of the situation to be like, you stand here with her while I run this play further, or while I do this, or while I type this up, or while I, write a ticket for whatever. But again, I don't know that there was anything that she at that juncture had done wrong that he could have done. But yeah, to be alone and to have somebody kind of doing these odd things to make they weren't obviously putting him at ease. Like, he felt
right,
like something was shaky. and then to kind of lose control of the situation. The only way apparently he knew how to do that was to cuff her. But obviously somebody who's not done anything wrong is in their head and in just a moment, obviously not going to just be like, okay, sure. So
my point regarding that quickly is that right at the beginning, she reached into her, she got out of the car and reached back into it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that he could have hung his hat on.
Yeah.
Relative to what is she doing? Either she's trying to ditch something in the car or trying to hide something from the car.
I agree with that.
That's the only basis that probably stuck in his head at the beginning.
I agree with that.
Aric, do you think, do we know, actually anybody can jump in, do we know if the officer, do we know when the stop was done? If the officer took some time to look and see what was in public view in the car? I ask, and Aric, I want your impression on this, because it didn't look like she had to reach far under a seat, or didn't look like she had to reach very far to get her hand on the gun. And I'm just wondering if it was sitting in the passenger seat or anywhere that might have been in public view. Had the officer kind of walked around the car and looked inside, what's in public view, what can I see? And like you always say, kind of assessed before just pulling her out and searching.
Yeah, well, I think you three have missed something. You three have missed something with the stop. But first, man, we miss the part of his camera coming on before he walked to that car, because it cuts in right where he's taking her purse, and we don't know if she gave consent for him to search the purse or not. But what transpires is he takes the purse, he starts to search it. She does make a comment of kind of, why do you want my bag? But we don't hear consent or no consent. And so he starts going through the purse and he finds what he believes to be drugs. He takes those back to his car, which is, he turns his back on the person, which makes absolutely zero sense. And then she goes back into the car. He comes back. Oh no, she goes to the purse. So now that's contaminated. And then he goes back and he goes through the purse, and that's when he calls for backup, because at that point he has drugs and he's going to detain her for that. So then she's getting upset about, not wanting to be put in handcuffs or detained, and that's when all heck breaks loose. But man, the guy, he is lucky she didn't run him over after she got back into the car.
That's exactly what I said too.
There are many factors of, I think, officers not having control. And I don't know, it's just, they put themselves in a unsafe positions. It's pretty scary. I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at. But hey, this lady was, I can't say she's guilty. I can maybe assume that. She has a boyfriend that is wanted on multiple felonies. I missed one part. She's actually on her phone texting someone. So how does he know that she's not texting someone to come get him? I mean, there was just so much going on right there.
At some point, she actually gets on the phone and calls someone and says, "I need you to come down here."
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was her mom at that point.
Yeah, I think it was her mom.
She was
texting before that.
Yeah. I didn't really perceive that really as like a threat, like come down here and do something to this cop. But I see why that's something noticeable, that a cop has to, okay, I'm about to be outnumbered soon.
Exactly. Well, just it shows again the lack of control and kind of situational maybe awareness of everything. To your original question of where was this gun, or could he maybe have seen it or looked in the car? Again, that goes to why you need more than one person. He could have stood with her and the other person could have done just a walk around the car, take a look in the windows. The door was open the whole time. From the way she got it that quickly, I'm thinking it had to have been, like right there. I don't even know if it was in the glove compartment. She got it so quickly. And it just seems like if there was somebody else there to help control the situation, you can get a little more information while also feeling secure and keeping everything, cool and collected.
That's why
he could have talked to her until backup showed up.
Right.
Yeah, I believe these times demand two-person cars.
Yeah.
It's just, you didn't see this. I saw another version of the video. It was a little bit earlier where I believe he requested the dispatcher to be informed whether I guess there's a police helicopter, whether it was up in the air or not. I think that happened just before the version we saw came on. So he was, but to me,
well, he wasn't worried she was going to run, was he?
Well, I don't know what he's worried about. See, all I know is he probably popped up hot the license plate on the computer with the warrants. So he doesn't know who's in the car. Right, at the point, I think, where if he was able to take that purse, feel it to make sure there was a weapon in there, now he's justified it to that point.
Correct.
And that's as far as he could go.
Correct.
And then move her to see if there was another officer there. He could have moved to the back of the car, looked to see if there was a weapon in clear view inside the car. 100 different things.
Yep.
I think just the fact that he was worried of the potential she could have been calling him with a code word on the phone.
Yeah.
But Joe, I think there's one important thing. They ran the plates. There were some felony warrants. Why is he approaching the car by himself?
Well, I agree. You're talking to the choir here. I agree. I've been ever since the mid '60s. There was a study that showed it was called the Kansas City study that showed that essentially it doesn't matter how many police you put in an area, there's going to still be the same amount of crime, and that justified management and police management to authorize one-person cars. So when I worked in some of the worst districts in the city, the only cars that were authorized to be one-person cars were on days. On afternoons and midnights, it was mandated you were a two-person car. And in this climate, are you kidding me?
Let me ask you this. Right now in this climate, when we talk about reallocation of money from police, I don't like to say defund police anymore because we all know what we're actually talking about. Nobody's talking about defunding the entire police industry or any police department. But when we talk about the reallocation of funding and we talk about a shortage in staffing and we talk about communities being upset at a lack of policing, and they've got, when you have a chief or, whoever's doing their staffing and you're sitting there going, okay, I've only got this many people and I've got this much city. Do I partner them up for safety or do I spread them out for response? Where's the answer?
I think the answer is you have to understand these are different times. They call for different solutions. Okay. You partner them up for the safety of both people, of the people that are in the community and for the police officers. It's the reality of the situation.
It protects them too, just real quickly, Dave, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
To understand kind of, we do this in the law as well. We call it like having a prover. Like to have someone else there just to make sure if something else goes wrong, to have a witness essentially. So if somebody else, it's not just my word versus yours. So you can have that other third party to say, and even if it's, two officers, you can, obviously say, well, they're on the same side. Of course they're going to back each other up. But very frequently, actually, I've had many cases where their two stories don't completely match up. And, it's sometimes they have time to get their story straight or whatever you want to call it. But there are plenty of officers that are like, no, that's not exactly how that happened. And they'll contradict each other. And so it's nice to not just have, my guy saying one thing and the one officer who was there saying another, to have, body cam footage and then also another actual human being who was there, who experienced it live and can tell you like what actually happened. So to have, just for the sake of having a prover and then for everybody's safety, I think it's of utmost importance to not have anybody just on these one-on-one situations.
See, that's one of my concerns is I worry about departments seeing body cameras as a suitable substitute for a second officer. It's really not.
It's not at all.
But, I see why they would say, oh, okay, well, it's on video. The story's straight. We got it. Well, we all know that that's not quite a full substitute. And certainly when it comes to safety, that's no substitute.
Right. Of course.
So Heather, we are going back and forth in this particular video that we're looking at between who's right, who's got the rights to do what they're doing, who doesn't, who's in the right, who's wrong. Where are we at? Here's where I'm at so far. The stop itself was probably lawful.
Sure.
Right? They hit the plate, reason to pull them over.
Absolutely. Lawful stop.
His assessment of the car and the person in it seemed to me to be lacking. And I say that because I don't see any real time spent checking out inside the car, checking her out before commencing with a search that he really didn't have any lawful ability to do.
Correct.
But the lawfulness of the search does not remove her from a whole separate incident, which is pulling a gun on him.
Correct.
Okay.
We'll start with resistance.
Which one of you wants to lead me the rest of the way here?
Okay, so I did look up this part of the law in for Tennessee specifically because I'm familiar with it in Illinois, but wanted to just be cognizant of the situation where this happened. Self-defense laws in Tennessee are like very broad. You can pretty much, you don't have to, you don't have to retreat. You can stand ground, all of that. There's very much actually a whole in-depth section in the statute that relates specifically to use of force against officers, peace officers. And if you reasonably believe that their use of force to effect a halt, a stop and frisk, etc., is unjustified and excessive, you are allowed to use force. I think it said deadly force. I'll double check it in response. And then they would obviously, there might be charges, but you would have that as a valid self-defense claim. Wow. If it's by reasonable belief and your belief actually was reasonable upon review.
Okay, so
the issue would then become, did he use excessive force in trying to do what he was doing in his official duties?
Well, first of all, does not everyone in Tennessee then just decide that force was excessive? I'm going to shoot this cop?
It has to be reasonable. So again, if it's, you could be charged with murder, and then if the jury or judge decides it was not reasonable for you to believe that force was unreasonable or excessive, then you're going down for murder. I'm
shocked that doesn't get used more.
Yep.
I'm shocked.
That the way that all played out, I was thinking, I'm like, if this wasn't like, an officer and a civilian, I'm looking at this going, this is a self-defense case. And so I looked up the statute for self-defense in Tennessee. And like I said, there's a specific portion of the statute relating specifically to peace officers in their official duties and whether or not you can use force in self-defense.
Okay. So then if he was attempting to place her in cuffs and make an arrest for the drugs in her purse, Aric, he found drugs in her purse, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So the arrest was coming for the drugs in her possession, which he didn't have a right to search for.
Correct.
We're assuming that because the video doesn't show us whether or not he asked if he could search, and we don't hear if she gave consent. Because that's even true. After she got out of the car, she never said, "I don't consent to you searching my property."
That's true. Because if she did consent, then he absolutely had probable cause and the right to go through it, and then a valid arrest could have taken place.
There was also a snippet in another version of this video where he asked her, "Is there anything in the car that's illegal I need to know about?" And she said, "Some weed."
Yes.
That's problematic too, of him asking her that, because it's specifically something that can elicit a response that can incriminate yourself. So that would get thrown out too. He's not allowed to ask her that without reading her rights.
Oh, well, then you know what?
But he seems to have asked her a bunch of questions, and it got what he wanted.
Right.
I'm not. It's weird, Joe. I don't think that this cop was like a newbie. I don't think he was a boot.
Oh, no, he's a field training officer. Here's my little take on it, a little bit different. Okay, so he makes a stop. He knows there's an associated felon with this party. Okay, so now he's got that in the back of on one part of his head. Okay, so now he sees this lady. She gets out, apparently cooperative, more than willing to jump out of the car. Him asking for her purse, but then she goes back to the car. Okay, so that's somewhat problematic if I'm alone. Okay, to me, why is she going back there? Because you don't need to. Then he explains he's filming it. And I understand that. That's okay. But you have to understand, you're taking all of my belongings, okay, to the back of the car. So now she accepts that for the moment. He starts going through it. She gets on the phone calling her mother, and it's problematic to him. I'm worried now. If I'm that copper, what's going on? Is she going to try to walk away? How am I going to handle that? I've lost control. I've got her purse though. Okay, whatever. I got her ID, all that stuff. But she's trying to go back. When he comes back from his car, she's going back to the car to get her lighter. There's no need for that. So I think he made the decision to cuff her based on one of two things. Either he was going to arrest her for the apparent narcotics, or then he was going to temporarily detain her to stop her from wandering around while he goes through the car, okay? Which both are somewhat problematic at that time, which is temporary detention. But because if I'm going through a car and bent over the front seat of a car and she's behind me, I don't want her behind me because for a zillion reasons, okay? Right. So all of that could have been avoided with another officer there. Unfortunately, the situation deteriorated based on the actions of the young lady, and it just went way beyond from 0 to 700 in 20 seconds. You know, it's just a shame.
And Aric, where are you? You just said something about resisting a minute ago.
Well, yeah, when he was initially trying to handcuff her, she resisted. She didn't want to be handcuffed, and then that's when she took off around the car.
So where are you on his decision to employ his taser at that point?
He tased her after he recognized there was a gun in the car.
No. He did it before.
Oh, when he was trying to. Oh no, yes. So he was trying to handcuff her.
He did it twice, and then he put it on her,
yes.
And then only after that did she grab the gun.
Yes. Okay. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So he was tasing her to try to gain compliance at first.
Yes.
Before he saw a gun.
Yes.
Anybody going to say that the tasing was unjustified or inappropriate in the moment?
It's a tough call.
It is a tough call, but I think based on the totality, and again, I know that he was in a position where he realized he was losing control, but I don't think that that's then her fault that she has to suffer being tased because he lost control of the situation. He still at that juncture had no reason to believe that she was armed or dangerous, like that she needed to be detained in such a way that she needed to be tased, you know, at that point. And I kind of think obviously after the mutual shootings and once he's on the ground and, you know, he's like, I'm hit, that he didn't keep trying to shoot or fire or anything. I think like at that point, he's like, I need to stop. Like I just let her go. And I think that, and Joe obviously could speak to this better than I can, but I think if that kind of thought maybe went through their heads more, just like, is this worth it right now? Do I need to escalate this situation for something where this is not the guy I'm looking for? And she may have some drugs in her purse. Do I need to really have this keep going like this? Or do I really just kind of need to say, I have to let this go. I didn't wait for backup. I should have had somebody here with me, and I'll call it in. I have the plate number. We know where I can be like, she's headed westbound on whatever. You guys go get her.
One of the problems with that to me, and I see the both sides of it, but I'm not sure how we address it. In fact, this just came up the other day when I was listening to your mayor in Chicago talk about potentially putting rules on foot pursuits. You know, I understand the notion of, okay, there's some drugs in her purse. It wasn't the person I was looking for. Is it worth all this at this point? To me, though, I look at that and I don't even think about the drugs. I see somebody who is just willing to shoot and kill a police officer to escape something. And if that's not somebody who shouldn't be allowed free in the neighborhood, in the community.
No, I'm saying before the shooting. Before the shooting. Like,
well, you're talking about just the tasing part.
Correct. Is this something where it's just like, you know what? Go. I lost control. This is on me. I lost control of this situation.
I don't think he lost control. He never had control.
Correct. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think the interesting thing here is that once a line had been crossed relative to her resisting his
command.
Direction,
yeah.
Okay. In such a manner that now there's belongings all over the place. I mean, her flip-flops are off.
Yeah.
She's running through the parking lot. It's part of this idea of this notion of de-escalation. I'm sorry. And I mean, he doesn't know what's happening. I think, to me, it goes back to the fact that she's running back maybe towards the car to get back in the car to the initial point of trying to get something out of that car. I mean, why didn't she just run into this Dollar General and create a big
sure. Yeah, he's trying to come after me. Yeah. Yeah.
I've had crazier situations like that before.
Yeah, I've seen them too.
But what I'm saying is then okay, so now it's the tase thing, and the tase thing doesn't work. Okay, It doesn't work. So it's not working now. I've got to go now. I got to tase her more. So he goes up and tases her more. She goes out a second. Yet she's still apparently pawned for the gun, and it produces the gun. Unbelievably, he switches from the taser, apparently from his good hand, enough to put it in the other hand and be able to draw his gun and tell her put the gun down 10 times before she shoots him and he shoots her. I mean, it just was a circle of events that just escalated to the point it was beyond control. It was beyond. I think about the opposite. What if he backs off, lady? Your shit's all over the street. Okay, I'm gonna go get back in my car. Take your stuff and here's your purse and leave. I'm telling you, the culture of a police officer, it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because remember, everything he did is on camera.
Right.
And now he's got suspect narcotics that he's letting her go for.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that's another thing. Once it's on camera, those days of cops cutting people breaks, once things are on camera, forget it. That's gone.
You stop a young kid in Woodlawn, a 15-year-old kid back in the 80s or 70s. I'm sorry, I'm dating myself with weed, and you tell the kid, "Come on, you don't want to be using this stuff." You take it, and the kid's polite and everything. You throw it in the sewer. Those days are gone if it's on camera.
Yeah.
Aric, you know what it seems like to me as we talk about this? It seems like this is a case where one thing escalated a little, and then the next person's response escalated that a little, and then the other person's response escalated that a little more until this got so out of hand that two people ended up getting shot. I think you're right. I don't think he ever had control.
No, yeah, he didn't. And again, we're missing the first part of the video, because apparently he had already searched the car, looked through the car, because he says, "Well, I think we got off on the wrong foot." So there's a lot that we missed.
No, he didn't search the car.
He didn't go up to the car really. Even.
No. I think we're missing that part of the video.
No, it didn't exist. I saw it from the beginning, maybe in another edition. But she got out of the car. She got out of the car, and he approached her, and he got out of the car. She was already got out of the car.
But he acknowledged that there was no one else in the car.
After she said,
she goes, "There's nobody here."
And then he acknowledges it. To me, it was like he had already looked inside, that he had already seen someone. But if that didn't happen, but still, regardless of that, he was looking for someone else. It wasn't her. All she had to do was say, "It's not me," and am I being detained? And she could have walked away if they wanted to keep the car.
Aric, that's a good point, because I tell my clients that's the same thing. All of us just want to go home. Do what you can to keep everybody calm. Just, I'm not saying like you have to just comply with everything. Like if it's something really crazy and you think your life is in danger, okay. But if it's just, like, hey, what's going on here? If she's like, he's not here. Am I under arrest?
Mm-hmm.
Am I under arrest for something? No. Am I free to leave? Is the question that I tell my clients to say as well, because then they're in a position where they either have to say, no, I'm detaining you for A, B, or C, or yes, you are free to leave. But, I have a few questions. You don't have, I'm not, on advice of counsel, I decline to answer. Thank you. Have a nice day. I'm going to go about my day. And then he doesn't have a right then to continue to pursue her. But because of that kind of, again, lack of control. And then she's kind of like, doing whatever she wants. Oh, let me have a cigarette. Can I go to the bathroom? He's like, well, hang on a sec. She was kind of running the show. Like she's like, I'm on the phone. I'm doing this. I'm going to go back. Get my lighter, do this, whatever. And without those kind of simple questions to keep everybody on an even keel, to just keep everything above board, the whole thing just disintegrated from the jump.
And it goes back to what Joe was saying, I think, in previous videos about this officer trying to be Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah.
And that just, I mean, I think he still could have been Mr. Nice Guy with giving some firm direction. Yeah. I mean, he gave her instructions, and once she didn't follow it, I don't know, by the second time, I mean, I think your demeanor needs to change. So, we just didn't see that. And I don't know, for an officer to be going through an investigation and have somebody jittery, she's not jittery, but not following your instructions, and you walk back to your police car with your back turned to that person, that's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Well, with the person,
I also wonder how much of that officer was second guessing himself and doubting himself, wondering about his own PC. I'm wondering, I know he was, Joe, you say he was an FTO. I'm sure he seemed to, be okay and have some confidence, but I'm also, I could relate to that feeling of not being 100% sure, and so not being 100% confident, and so not being 100% aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think his basic style in life is to just, do his job. I mean, hey, you know what? We could solve this problem. No cop or stop anybody, and just forget it. Okay, it's not worth the aggravation. Look at the heat this guy's taking. Okay, I'm sure he feels terrible about what happened.
Yeah,
as most officers do, it end up having to take a life. He could have emptied his gun and kept emptying it. I mean, once that happened, he had the control enough to stop. Of course, he was hit. It's a miracle. It's a miracle he wasn't killed, and it's sad and unfortunate that she was.
So let's get into
run her over.
Let's get into this last part. I have to tell all of you, I'm shocked. He was up on his knees with his gun in his hand and didn't keep shooting her. Shocked. I thought for sure he's going to raise that gun and keep shooting into the car, because if not, she's about to run him over or keep shooting him.
I think that was, as soon as he may have been kind of in shock. It seemed like he kind of kept his wits about him though. But I think as soon as he realized like she's just getting away, I think again, that was maybe his line of, there's nothing I can keep doing right now. If I continue to do this, she will end up dead. And over what? Drugs? We have the plate. We know we already have warrants out for this, this car or the occupants, whatever. I have backup already on the way. This will be dealt with. I mean, I think it just, where was he hit?
But it wasn't.
It went past his body armor and hit him in the side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. See, that's my point. Is this getting shot hurts a lot?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you get shot, the instinct is to strike back, especially when you have a weapon in your hand that you can start shooting until because somebody just hurt you really bad.
Yeah.
I give the officer credit in that regard, because the first thing he did was got on the radio, explain that he was hit, and try to keep his wits about him. I think he was as much shocked about the circumstances that happened,
right,
as getting shot.
Correct. That's what it seemed like. And I was very impressed that he didn't even say he was hit until after kind of giving the rest of the information first. This happened, this, shots fired, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, 23, I'm hit. Like he went through many other steps first.
He definitely went through his training.
Yeah, his training.
I mean, even as far as, like Joe pointed out, taking the taser from one hand to the other hand and being ready to
it was incredible.
His lethal weapon.
Yeah.
So we're looking for an answer. Was his shooting of her justified given the circumstance? And I still don't feel 100% because, I mean, I don't know 100% because I still am questioning the legality of what he was doing and the legality of the scenario in the first place. But I'm pretty sure that's going to be a separate issue from the fact that then she reached for a gun while resisting arrest and shot at the police officer.
So
I'd say 99% of the time, 99.99% of the time you shoot at the police in that situation like that, at close range, you're going to get shot.
You're toast. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to remember. Did he use the word detain at any time? Maybe right when she was in the back of the car.
I don't think
so.
I'm
not certain he did.
I just remember him saying, "Do me a favor, come on and put your hands behind your back," and she freaked out. I don't know if he had a chance to say anything else after that.
Yeah, that was the end. The issue again, though, becomes just based on the law, the Tennessee statutes.
Well, if you're being tased, you're being attacked.
You're being attacked. And if she had reasonable grounds to believe that was excessive based on the circumstances and excessive use of force to detain her for a stop and frisk, for a halt, for a whatever, since I in her head, as far as she's concerned, she still hasn't done anything wrong. He's looking for somebody else. She's like, I haven't done anything. So she now is, I don't know how unreasonable it is for her to think this guy's trying to kill me.
I'm going to assume that she didn't know that.
Gun first, absolutely, I think she may have been justified to pull hers.
Well, I'm assuming she didn't know that rule because she didn't even know the rule about giving consent.
She didn't know. I'm just saying, like, legally speaking, looking at this from the legal perspective, that's how this could shake out. That she may have had a legal justification to reasonably believe that she could use force for excessive force being used upon her. And then he doesn't then get the right to then use further excessive force on her for defending herself.
Well, but
tricky
but then you get into, okay, but does the police officer believe her belief that he's being unreasonable is unreasonable?
Correct. Of course not. Of course not. So then he obviously gets into his thing is self-defense, which is also a valid claim.
Is it reasonable that a court is going to allow her to believe that a police officer trying to arrest her was using excessive force in resisting her resistance? I mean, you see how crazy this gets?
Yeah. So they would have to have charged her with like resisting arrest, which they could, which is again another reason why I tell all of my clients, just be calm, go with them. I will deal with it.
Right.
I'll get you, like a lot of these times, like this one, this would have been gone. But she tried to deal with it herself. Like I have plenty of clients who now get the point because they've been arrested too many times and charged, but now they know exactly what to do. And then we deal with it. And then it's like, okay, it's like a cat and mouse game. They have to let them go because they have nothing, because they just were like, okay, this sucks. My night is probably ruined now. And like, hopefully I don't have to spend the whole night in county, but okay, let's go. Yeah. Heather will deal with it later.
Yeah. Who else? I mean, where are we with that?
Joe, that goes back to
what if something like that happens in Illinois? What's the law in Illinois about resisting an officer, even if you think that they're wrong?
No, it's wrong. Can't.
Yeah, you can't. It's a felony, resisting.
Well, why would you resist anyone that has a gun
That's a good question too.
That's the $64,000 question.
Yeah.
There you go. That's it.
It's driven these shows for the last 2 years,
Yeah.
3 years.
So then what is the ultimate answer then? Are we actually considering that her use of force might have been justified?
In Tennessee, it may be.
Aric, talk to me here. Render some sense on this.
Unfortunately, I didn't look up the law, but if he had said he was detaining her, Heather, I'm asking you now, if he said he was going to detain her, then at that point, she has to comply. Is that not correct?
It would be more evidence of clear and convincing evidence that his force was reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if that happened, and I'd have to look at the video again, because I can still recall hearing the word detain, and maybe that was right as she was trying to run away from him. But if he had acknowledged that he was going to detain her and she ran back into the car, well, Joe, you said this too. I mean, she's jumping into a deadly weapon at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what she's got. You don't know what she's going to do. She hasn't followed any instructions.
Correct.
Up through that point. Who knows? I mean, she could have just jumped in the car. Maybe she was going to run him over. So
I think it was a matter at the beginning when he said we're getting off at the wrong foot, and then you know he wanted to kind of reset the ground rules here. Maybe when he asked for the purse, you know, he realized that maybe it was not going well, even though she said. Her response was, "Hey, you know, you got all my stuff here. You know, I mean, it's not me. I'm not in the car. He's not in the car. Now what?"
Right.
Mm-hmm. So if she was pulled over, it wasn't her car. They know he wasn't in there. Can they still ask? Can they still ask for her ID and run the ID? Does she have to comply with that because she's in that car?
She's still operating the motor vehicle, right? I mean,
yeah. And if she had committed an infraction, they can run the plates of the car, which they obviously did. Yeah. It pulled up like, this is hot. Oh my God, dude, this guy's got warrants like crazy. But again, unless she really gives like consent, he's not supposed to just be like looking her up.
And we don't know what the other issues are that he was referring to. Because once he identified that person wasn't in the car that he was looking for, he said there was other issues. So what were the other issues? And so, you know, there's just so much mystery in this.
Yeah. To me, like I said, at that juncture, I think you just have to eat that one and be like, well, you know, maybe don't hang around with this guy because we're coming in hot right now. He's not here.
Yeah.
But.
Heather, kick us off. First one's on you. I want my lawyer answer.
Oof.
Now you know how I feel.
Yeah, Aric's off the hook tonight because he's on vacation. When you get back to Texas, I'm coming to you first.
So what kind of a twofer?
Yeah.
Was the tasing justified and then was the shooting justified? How about that, right?
Actually, it was a threefer, but we already answered the first one. Was his search justified?
Search justified? Absolutely not. Okay. Unless she consented, which there was some kind of back and forth about that, maybe, which again goes back to kind of the non-control of the entire situation.
Also, I'll just throw in that sometimes that little gray area of conversation can be used by either side's advantage to say, well, I never said I didn't.
Correct.
And then the judge decides.
And then, right. And then it goes to a hearing for the judge. So based on what I saw and without her express consent, I say the search unjustified. He did not have probable cause to do any sort of search of her person or of the vehicle until or unless the person he was looking for was in it or she did something that led him to believe that she was imminently about to commit a crime or armed and presently dangerous. So unjustified as to the search. I believe, honestly, justified as to the tasing to a certain extent. Was everything out of control, but did she escalate it by running and getting again back in this vehicle that he hadn't searched and had no idea what was in, but knew it was associated with somebody that had multiple felony warrants? I think the tasing was justified. Then ergo, I suppose also the shooting was justified, because then it was what he believed anyway to be a lawful response to a threat against his life. So then on his...
Not only a threat, she shot him.
She shot, right. I mean, but yeah, that's right. So at that juncture, absolutely pulling his gun, giving her commands to put it down, all justified, especially since we left that out too. He didn't just like see her with a gun and start shooting. He asked, put the gun down, put the gun down, put the gun down. And then she shot first. And then he shot, it looked like. It's what it appeared to be.
I believe that too. I don't think any of us know for sure who shot first. But I believe, based on his refusal to immediately start shooting,
correct
commands, that she shot first.
That's what it appeared to me. And again, right, this isn't one of those ones where he's just like, gun, and just starts shooting.
Right.
He kind of put himself to the side so he wasn't directly in front of her. I noticed that as well. And I don't know if, again, that's just beautiful training kicking in, but he kind of moved back so that there was a little bit of the car in between him, some, metal, like iron and steel in between. Yeah. And gave her commands to drop it, put it down, drop it, put it down. And only then was there some back and forth gunfire. So I believe search unjustified, tasing justified, but by a thread, and then the shooting justified.
Aric, where are you?
Well, if she would have read my book, she probably wouldn't be alive right now, unfortunately. And I mean, there would have been nothing the officer could do. Officers are trained to investigate, and they're going to ask you questions. If you're going to give them answers, then they're going to keep going forward with it. And that kind of looks like what happened. I'm speculating. But as soon as she resisted arrest, I mean, I think everything was justified. It's just sad that it comes to that point. But I mean, even to the fact that once he tased her, he sees a gun, and for him not to immediately fire showed some resistance or discipline, one of the two. I don't know. But man, and she still could have run him over with the car. I mean, there was just so much that he could have done. And oh man, this is really bad because I'm in no shape, but he was in no shape to run her down anyway, even if she would have taken off.
I'm not sure she was in much shape to run from him, or he was in any shape.
Both ways, but obviously he wasn't strong enough to even pull her out of the car.
Right.
After tasing her, or while he was tasing her. So, there's something to say about that as well. But it's someone pulled a gun on an officer. It's justified at that point.
Joe, finish us off here.
He was doing his job. He ran the plate for whatever reason. The car caught his attention. He ran that plate and bingo, it lights up. Okay, so he makes his stop. It's not in control right from the beginning. Not necessarily because I think not that I thought that he didn't do what he should have done, but I think it's like when one thing led to another. And like, for instance, when you tase somebody, they're supposed to go out. You know what I mean? That's supposed to be in there. He would have been able to pull her out of the car, cuff her, and then search the car. Okay? But it didn't happen. She didn't come out of it because she never was really fully unconscious. That's another point that could be made. Did the taser affect her thinking? I mean, that's a point that could be made too. But I think the officer was doing his job. I think, unfortunately, the style, the manner in which it went down was unfortunate in that it just kind of wasn't clean. And I agree with Heather that there was no reason to go through the purse further once he knew that there wasn't a weapon in the purse. I think he might have been alerted to the fact that she did make some kind of furtive movement to the car at the beginning, and that would and the only concern there should be weapon.
Correct.
At first, and so then when she didn't consent to either the temporary detention being cuffed or the arrest being cuffed, we don't know what he was thinking yet. It all went out. It says, this isn't working. Now what? And there's debris all over the place. Her shoes are all over the place. She's not running to Dollar Central. She's running back to the car. I got a right to tase her that'll work. And then I've got control. It didn't happen. And then now all of a sudden there's a gun. Heather, you were very astute in seeing that he moved to a position where it made her difficult to take that gun with the right hand and get a clear shot without bending over it. And you know, I noticed that too. Yeah. And then the backup's still not there. Now I'm not blaming the backup because he called the backup, you know, to take your time or whatever. It's no big problem. And then it ends up a shooting. She's mortally wounded, gets in the car. I don't know how she was able to start that car and turn around, but he's shot. He gets on the radio. I'm hit. I'm shot. Shooting justified.
So that's what we have. We're pretty much justified across the board past the search.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Any final thoughts?
All right.
I want this show to go away. We don't have to talk about police shootings anymore. Police involved shootings.
I would love this show to go away. I would love it to go away.
And most coppers would too.
It's not going to go away until we bring this to the public knowledge.
Yeah, it's really true. It's not going to go away until something gives somewhere.
Well, I think there needs to be, and Heather touched on this too, and I'm more convinced as every time I see one of these. I think there needs to be a training, revision, revamping. Based upon not some guy who studies jujitsu or whatever, but based upon the reality of these shootings in these climates.
Yep.
From small departments to large departments, which are completely different.
Yep. And across the board to have some kind of standardized thing of how do we address the current climate and how do we address the current situations.
Maybe that could be one of our shows.
Well, it should be, because I think there's a huge conversation in there. You know, I think that industry-wide, like most any other industry, policing industry-wide is so big that, and there's so many people in charge of so many components. I'm not sure what it takes to get an entire industry to start making the same changes in the same direction at the same time, especially when you factor in how many different state mindsets are in charge of their own police. But something's got to give. I mean,
it takes someone doing something.
That's right. So I'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you all so much. There we have it, everyone. Tonight's decision was a surprise to me. It was a little bit mysterious to me which way we were going to go tonight. And that is because sometimes in police encounters, when there's a question as to the lawfulness of the police officer's actions, it can sometimes render the whole rest of the encounter null and void. In this case, however, as our panelists explained, the subject, Nika's decision to use force on the officer, was entirely separate and irrelevant to whether the officer had probable cause to search her purse. In this particular case, her decision to use force on the officer while resisting arrest did warrant a justified use of force on the part of the police officer. As usual, an investigation is ongoing and we will get further information on this case. In the meanwhile, if you have an opinion, if we were wrong about something, or if you have a case you want us to review, please go ahead and email us at info@beforethecourttv.com. info@beforethecourttv.com. Until next week, I'm Dave Cupp. We'll see you next time on Before the Court.